to join me? I'd like to introduce to you our next president of this great United States of America, Senator Marco Rubio.
Very much. I'm really glad I'm honored you be here at 8 o'clock. What time is it? 8:50. We just finished that debate. It was literally 8 hours ago. So it's great to be with you guys. I'm really excited to be here with all of you. Thank you for your enthusiasm. A couple points. When they lead these chants of Marco, I always cringe because I think the next thing that's coming is polo. All right, number two, you want to show enthusiasm. You want to prove that someone's enthusiastic and fired up about a campaign. This gentleman here, look at his face. Look at that. You didn't do that last night. All right, this guy got up at 5 in the morning to do that. That's excellent, man. Thank you. And, that's fantastic. And I want to thank all of you for being here. This election is so important. And I said it last night in that debate. When I started with the statement was, this is the greatest country in the history of the world. It is. There's never been a country like this in all of human history. You know why I know that? Because I was raised by people that grew up somewhere else. And when you're raised by people that know what life is like in other countries, they know how special America is. And it was special because it was founded on a very powerful principle, which is the idea that your rights don't come from the government. Your rights come from God. And that the job of government is to protect your rights, not to decide them. That makes us different from the rest of the world. Every other country thinks your rights are what your leaders allow you to have. But we believe our rights come from our Creator. And then you got a president that on 10 separate occasions has apologized for America. Apologized for the United States on 10 separate occasions for being arrogant, for telling people what to do, for X, Y, and Z. This is absurd. This is why people feel the way they do right now. And that's why this election is so important. That's why I'm so passionate about this election. And that's why it's so critical, number one, that Hillary Clinton not win. I know. Hillary Clinton wins. The next 4 years are not just going to be as bad as the last 7, they're going to be worse. They're going to be worse. Because the longer we keep doing this, the more damage it will do. 2016 is a turning point for this country. If we don't get this election right, we may not be able to undo some of this damage. By the way, as I said last night, I believe this. I've said this before. It's not new. She cannot be commander-in-chief. She's disqualified from being commander-in-chief. She doesn't know how to handle classified information. She doesn't. She wants the convenience of having it on her BlackBerry, so she tells people, oh, erase that it says classified. It's still classified. And she has to have known that now that's vulnerable to every spy agency in the world. But she did it anyway because she thinks she's above the law. But here's what's worse. Okay? She knew that those 4 Americans in Benghazi died as a result of a coordinated terrorist attack. We know she knew. Because she told that to foreign leaders. Because she told that to her family members. But then she's telling the families of those victims, oh, this was because of a weird video, and it fired them up. This was a spontaneous thing. Well, no, it wasn't. Anyone who lies to the families of those victims is disqualified from being commander-in-chief of the United States. But by the way, we can't just elect any Republican. Okay, now I don't like to attack fellow Republicans. I don't, and I like every single one of them. None of them is a socialist, as I said last night. None of them is under FBI investigation. I don't want to do anything that makes life easier for Hillary Clinton to win. But I do think there are differences. And those are important because the damage Barack Obama has done is so extensive that our next nominee cannot be someone that supports his agenda or any piece of it that is damaging to this country. And so we do point those out. You know, one of the things the president's going to do is nominate Supreme Court justices. This is maybe as many as 4. Okay, and we need to appoint Supreme Court justices that understand that the Constitution is not a living and breathing document. It is supposed to be interpreted and applied as originally intended. And then I'm going to go over to the Oval Office. Before the parties, before the gala, before everything, I want to go right to the Oval Office. Because I am going to go to my desk and I'm going to sit down. Maybe I won't even sit. Maybe it's one of those standing desks that people use to. No, I'm going to sit. I'm going to sit. And I'm going to sit at that desk, and I'm going to take out the presidential pen. Maybe Barack Obama leaves it with his phone right there. But I'm going to take the presidential pen, and I am going to reverse and repeal every single one of his unconstitutional executive orders. Every single one. So all crazy EPA rules are gone on day number one. All these things he's doing to undermine the Second Amendment are gone on day one. And they told Obama, we, the big insurance companies, will support Obamacare if you create a bailout fund for us. So they did. And guess who pays for the bailout fund? You do. So in 2014, I led the effort, and we wiped out the bailout fund. We wiped it out. And we saved the taxpayers $2 billion. And all these newspapers around the country, all of them, the editorial boards, Marco Rubio just did something terrible. It's going to lead to the collapse of Obamacare. I hope so. I hope so. But whether it does or it doesn't, when I'm president, we're getting rid of Obamacare. We're getting rid of it once and for all. It will happen when I'm president. The other issue people talk about all the time, immigration. Listen, I understand this issue. My dad was an immigrant. My mother was an immigrant. My grandparents were immigrants. My wife's entire family are immigrants. I grew up in a community of immigrants. I still live in a community of immigrants. I understand this issue as better than anyone else running because I've lived it. I didn't watch a PBS special on it. I didn't read a book about it. I didn't read the congressional testimony on it. I have lived it. I know every aspect of it. The good, the bad, the ugly. I know the story of people that are here illegally, and it's wrong what they did, but their stories would break your heart. I know the story of people that are here legally, and their stories would outrage you. Outrage you. It's happening now in my community. You know, Cubans have the Cuban Adjustment Act. When they come from Cuba to the United States, if you arrive in the United States, you are immediately legal, unlike any other immigrant in the world. And the reason for that was communist country, everyone's seeking, you know, freedom and so forth. Automatic. And they qualify for all sorts of refugee benefits when you arrive. This is something that's been around for a long time. Here's what's happening now. What's happening now, especially after the Obama deal with Cuba, is people are coming from Cuba. They arrive. They immediately sign up for all of the benefits, and then you know what they do? They move back to Cuba. They go back. They move back to Cuba. And you know who's outraged about it? Cubans are outraged by it. They move back to Cuba, and they have a relative in Miami or somewhere in the U.S. that collects their benefits, sometimes takes a cut, and then sends the rest, wires the rest over to them. So you have people living in Cuba today that are collecting Social Security benefits, never worked a day in their life in the United States, and all sorts of benefits. And they're living over there. This is an outrage, guys. That's why I filed a bill this week that ends that once and for all. That ends it once and for all. But I can tell you that some of this has been reported in the media. ISIS is deliberately recruiting people that do not fit the typical profile. Like who? Doctors. They're looking for jihadists that are doctors and foremost. This is not about hating anybody, okay? This is about being safe. When I am president of the United States, we're going to be governed by a very simple rule. If we don't know who you are, 100% for sure, and we don't know why you're coming, when I'm president, you're not getting into the United States of America. And on the other issues, we'll deal with the other issues. I don't support amnesty. We're not going to have amnesty. We're not. Okay? Sanctuary cities are going to lose their federal funding. Criminal aliens are going to be immediately deported. And we're going to enforce our immigration laws. We're going to secure the southern border. Not just because of immigration, but because of terrorism. And we know what it takes to do that. It is not some great mystery. It takes political will, but we know what it takes to do it. And we will when I'm president. You need 20,000 new border agents. You need to finish 700 miles of fencing and walls. You need cameras and sensors on key sectors of the border. You need a mandatory e-verify system, so you can't get a job if you're not here legally. You need a biometric entry-exit tracking system, because 40 to 50% of the people in the country illegally are entering legally. They're coming on a tourist visa, 90 days, it expires, they stay. We don't know who they are. We literally don't know who they are or where they are. That's why you need the entry-exit tracking system. We know what it takes to do it. I've been pushing for that for 2.5, 3 years while in the Senate. We're going to do it when I'm president of the United States. Once and for all, we will secure our borders. And I want to wrap up with this. We're going to keep America safe because national security is the most important thing the federal government does. Okay? The federal government is not supposed to regulate fantasy football. It wasn't designed to run our schools through Common Core. That's why we don't even need a Department of Education. It wasn't designed to do a bunch of the stuff it does. Here's the one thing it is supposed to do, and that is keep us safe from threats. That's right. We face threats. Okay? A lunatic in North Korea potentially has a hydrogen bomb now, and has long-range rockets that could already hit the state of California potentially. Most certainly Guam and Hawaii, okay? The Chinese are building artificial islands in the most important shipping lane in the world. They're landing planes there. They're hacking our computers. They're undertaking the most rapid military buildup in history. Russia is more aggressive than ever. Their economy's collapsing, but they're pouring more money than ever into their military. Okay. Iran is about to get $100-something billion of sanctions relief, and they're getting friskier by the day. They have no problem now firing rockets 1,000 yards away from our ships. They have no problems now capturing our sailors and humiliating them or trying to humiliate them. They have no problem continuing their sponsorship of terrorism all over the world. And by the way, guys, you know what they're going to use that money for? Let me tell you what they're not going to use it for. They're not going to build roads and bridges. They're not going to set up charity organizations to feed the poor. They're not going to go around, you know, they're not going to build schools for girls. What they're going to do with that money is they're going to build it or buy a nuclear weapon. They can build it, they can buy it from the lunatic in North Korea. And they're going to continue to develop their long-range missiles. They're testing them every day. Every day. And then last but not least, we have this threat of ISIS. And that's why I'm so passionate about national security and rebuilding our military. Do you know what we're doing to our military now? Let me describe it to you. We are going to soon have, in less than 5 years, we will have the smallest army since the end of the Second World War. In less than a decade, we will have the smallest Navy in 100 years. And I know that some of the people that are involved in that say, oh, well, we don't need as many ships because our ships are more capable technologically than ever. It's true, they are. And that's great. I'm not telling you these ships aren't good ships. I'm telling you that no matter how technologically capable they are, they can't be in two places at once. And that's the problem we have. Not what's driving our debt. Military spending is not what's driving our debt. Our debt is being driven by runaway government spending on all sorts of programs, you know, these anti-poverty programs. I believe in the safety net, but not as a way of life. Not as a way of life and not as a lifestyle. I think we should take the anti-poverty programs, give them over to the states and to the local communities, and let them design innovative programs that cure poverty. And you know what the cure to poverty is? A good paying job. So, and we're going to save Social Security and Medicare. Look, I'm from Florida. A lot of people don't realize this. There are a lot of people on Social Security and Medicare in Florida. And my mother's one of them. I wouldn't be for anything that's bad for her. And the good news is we don't have to change. We don't have to disrupt her Medicare and Social Security, or the Medicare and Social Security of anyone who's retired or about to retire. But the truth is, it's not going to look the same for me. It won't. It either won't exist because it went bankrupt, or we reformed it. And reform it means this. It means I'm going to have to retire at 68 instead of 67. If I've made a lot of money, like the people that just won the Powerball, right? Can you believe that? 3 people won it. I should have played. If you made a lot of money, your Social Security benefits aren't gonna grow as fast as they grow for someone who made less money. Your Medicare could be the option of using your Medicare money to buy a private plan that you like better. That's how you deal with the debt, not cutting military spending. When I'm president, we're gonna rebuild the military. And you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna have a real war on terror. Not what we have now, which is a war on terror based on speeches. A president that says, oh, ISIS, they're just a bunch of guys on the back of a pickup truck. No, they're not. They're not. They're much more than that. They are the people that conducted those attacks yesterday in Indonesia. They are the people that inspired someone in Philadelphia to shoot 3 rounds into a police car. And then the mayor of Philadelphia is denying it had anything to do with Islam or ISIS. Well, ask the guy who did it. He said it. It was a terrorist attack, and nobody talks about it. It's like we've become numb to this stuff. These people are conducting attacks all over the world. They're growing in their capabilities. We're going to have a real war on terror, and it's not going to be a very complicated one to describe. Here's what it's going to look like. The most capable intelligence agencies in the world are going to tell us, here's what the terrorists are. And then the most capable military in the world is going to destroy them. And if we capture any of them alive, we're not going to give them a lawyer. They're not going to hear their Miranda rights. You're not going to be reading about them in a courtroom in Manhattan pleading their case or trying to get off on a technicality. If we capture them alive, they are going to be given a one-way ticket to Guantanamo. I'm grateful that you're here today. And
Thank
you.
Support.
Thank you. This is an incredibly humbling experience. In the end, What I am asking you to do is to entrust me with the most important political office in the country. I am asking you to entrust me as Commander-in-Chief, which means to keep our nation safe. But I'm also asking you to entrust me with the dignity of that office, with what it means to this country, with what it means in terms of dividing us versus uniting us. The President gave the speech, his last State of the Union, God, about how divided America is. Well, you know why? Because you've divided us, Mr. President. You've pitted us against each other. You've told us that the reason why I'm struggling is because my neighbor's doing too well. On every issue, you've tried to divide us against each other for 6 years or 7 years, and now you want to be this great uniter again? I will never pit Americans against each other. We have problems in this country. We'll address them. But in the end, I'm going to be a president for all Americans, even the people that don't vote for me. Even the people that say nasty things about me on Twitter. I'm going to keep them safe too. And we're going to cut their taxes too. And we're going to get government out of their regulations, out of their business too. And we're going to keep their families and their country safe as well. But this is an incredibly humbling experience. Because what we are facing now is no ordinary election. 2016 will go down in history as a turning point. And there are only two directions we can turn. The road we are on right now leaves us as a great nation in decline. That's hard for me to say because of everything this country's meant for me and the world. But that's what we are right now. That's the hard truth. We are a great nation in decline. Or what you're doing for your children now. What makes us great is not that we have rich people. Every country has rich people. We celebrate wealth and success. We have 40% of the world's millionaires. We're 5% of the world's population. Incredible achievement. But what makes us special is not that. What makes us special are the millions of people that, even as I speak, are on their way to work. And they're going to work hard today. And they're not going to make a tremendous amount of money. But they're going to clean those hotel rooms. And they're going to park cars. And they're going to mow lawns. They're going to do whatever they need to do, not just to be able to feed their children tonight, because they want their children to be able to do all the things they never could. Because they want all the opportunities they once had wanted for themselves to be possible for their kids. You know how rare that is in human history? That's what defines us. And that's what we're losing. And we're never going to get it back with big government. We're only going to get it back if we understand that's what makes us special and elect as president someone who every single day will fight to remain that kind of country, and I will. And that's why I'm asking for your vote in this election. I know you have a lot of good choices, but no one running for president feels more passionate about the American dream than I do. No one running for president has a better understanding of our national security threats or has shown better judgment than I have. And I'll tell you this, when I'm president of the United States, we will turn this country around. We will re-embrace the principles that made us special, and we are going to apply them to the challenges of our time. And we are not just going to save the American dream. We are going to expand it so that it reaches more people and changes more lives than ever before. And when we are done in this generation doing our part, here's what history will say of us. It will say that we lived in the early years of this new century in a dangerous and uncertain time, facing the damage done by a president that has taken us in the wrong direction. But then, like all the generations before us, this generation rose to the calling of their time. That we confronted. That like all the Americans that came before us, we confronted our challenges, we embraced our opportunities, and because we did, the 21st century turned out to be not just as good as the 20th century, it turned out to even be better. Our children and our grandchildren grew up to be the freest and the most prosperous Americans that ever lived. And the 21st century was also known as a new American century. Thank you for having me.